got a question from Aushra, a Patreon supporter. If you want to, you can click on the link below this video. You can join Patreon, pay $1 and join the conversation. Got a question from Aushra. Boils down to saying, look, if as a vegan you're in a situation where your grandmother offers you cake, she's baked a cake for you, but it's a non-vegan cake, what is the point in refusing? Given that we know there's no real cause and effect outcome, it's not as if somewhere a chicken is being liberated from a cage because you're refusing to eat this chocolate cake your grandmother baked you. Given that there isn't some kind of direct karmic consequence from this, she's not asking what is the harm, but she's asking, if we refuse, are we being dogmatic? If we refuse, are we merely standing up for our own personal purity? Is this become a form of personal purity abstracted from, maybe fetishized above and beyond the practical real world sphere of vegan politics or even vegan diet? And she mentions that when she's in a situation such as being in a restaurant and they accidentally put egg in the noodles, she feels so disgusted she couldn't bring herself to eat them, although I don't know why. I guess she thought the thing to do was to eat them even though they had egg. She's wondering, is there a point of diminishing returns after which, really abiding by a vegan diet maybe does more harm than good in these various ways? My answer is not about personal purity, but it's about persons and personhood. This is about being a person, all right? My answer is not about the animals, not in this case, not in these circumstances. My answer is not about karma or a magical idea of these things having those kinds of consequences. This problem gets to the core of, who are you as a human being, as a person? What kind of respect and dignity do you demand from others around you? I mean, if your grandmother made this cake for you, that's what gives it this moral weight. She's trying to do something nice for you. Doesn't she deserve to know why it's not nice? Doesn't she deserve to know about what veganism is and why it matters to you so much? Now, some people are gay and they decide to never tell their grandparents that they're gay. They just make that decision. They think to themselves, ultimately, I don't love this person enough to be honest with them. It's what it is. It's kind of contempt. And it's a judgment call we all have to individually make. Maybe your grandmother is going deaf. Maybe your grandmother doesn't really have a language in common with you. Maybe you speak English and she mostly speaks Romanian or something. A lot of families are in that situation. There can be barriers that would make explaining veganism to your grandparents very difficult, or explaining the fact that you're gay to your grandparents very difficult. If you don't love them enough, if you don't respect them enough to explain that you're vegan, or explain that you're gay, that's a judgment call. But ultimately, it's an expression of contempt. All right? And if they're going to feed you non-vegan food, that's an expression of contempt going the other way, unless they're unaware, right? Unless you've never told them, then it's on you, then it's your fault, right? Because you never explained to them the rules you live by, what it means, or why it matters to you so much, right? So there's an obligation on you, otherwise you can't blame them for their actions. So it's about who you are as a person. It's not about a magical dotted line that goes from the eggs that are invisibly in that cake to a bird in a cage on the other side of the world. Although, there really is a sense in which I believe in and preach in that dotted line. I think that, on a deep level, part of what we're doing as vegans is trying to take responsibility for the consequences of our actions. But that ethic ultimately is a tragic one, because every day, you may live in an apartment where non-vegan ingredients glue the wallpaper to the wall. You drive a car where the tires and even the tarmac contain non-vegan ingredients. There are these amazing examples of the extent to which, as vegans, we pay for and consume non-vegan things. So there's a tragic element to that. But we can say at least we're trying. At least we're trying to take responsibility for the consequences of our actions and trying to control and limit and minimize negative knock-on effects of action? Sure. So there's a sense in which I believe in the dotted line, and I preach the dotted line. But in response to this specific question, my answer is not about the animals. It's not about ecology. It's not even about your health. Your health matters. It's about dignity, respect, and love for you as a human being. Don't you have any dignity? Don't you have any pride in who you are? Not who you are as a vegan, just who you are. Right? This is not food for you. You know, it's like when vegans get into, would you eat roadkill? You know, is nothing beneath my dignity? Is nothing beneath your dignity? You've got to draw a line. And I would say, even if your grandmother is deaf and doesn't understand English and you can't take up that issue with her, you can just leave the cake on the plate and not eat it. I can imagine being in the situation. I've been in business meetings. You know, it was a big banquet hall, and they're putting out non-vegan food, and I'm not in a position to lecture higher people at that meeting about veganism, but I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to touch it. And when people ask, I'll tell them why. But sure, you can be in a hierarchical situation where people are unequal, and you're not going to lecture anyone or let them know. And I don't have any kind of personal relationship. I don't have any love or respect for these other people at this meeting, and they don't have any love or respect for me. So none of those issues are there. But sure, this is your grandmother, and you're her granddaughter. I mean, you're worth it. We're not such dogs that we just have to eat any scraps that are left on the kitchen floor, right? We're in a position to refuse as vegans, as loved ones, as family members, as human beings. And if you refuse and your family doesn't understand, doesn't want to understand, they treat you with contempt, then that's on them, right? You've got to stand up for your own dignity in that situation. You've got to ask them to respect you. And if you put in the time and energy to explain to them what veganism is, why it matters to you so much, that is really an expression of love and respect from you to them. If you didn't do that, if you just regarded them as beneath contempt, as people who are never going to understand, who are not worth explaining to, what you're really saying is, it's not even worth it to help them understand who I am.